Hello there, I'm Lloyd Evans. Welcome to the Attic. It's time for another voicemail. Today's voicemail is from Scott. Let's listen to what Scott has to say.
Hi, Lloyd. My name's Scott. Feel free to use this message on your channel if you so desire. I'm calling in regards to a bit of I want to say, a moral dilemma I've encountered regarding a decade-old letter writing campaign my family and I engaged in. Well, basically, my father, who is a Jehovah's Witness elder. I left many years ago. I had a tolerable relationship with the family until an American relative put my father's hand to the fire regarding how worldly his eldest son was. And my father basically reached out to do some spiritual shepherding and also to find out whether or not my family and I celebrated holidays, which of course we do, have been for years, just never brought it up. Everybody was wise enough not to do that. Well, the cat was out of the bag, I guess, and I've been shunned ever since, even though I disassociated myself in the early 2000s. Anyways, that's part of the story. The letter campaign itself was interesting in that he sent me an email. I replied to him with a letter because I didn't want it going through his joint email with his wife. So I replied with a written letter that was mailed to his address. In that letter, I basically went through all my issues with him as an elder, with the Jehovah's Witnesses, with the Watchtower Society, with how I'd been raised. No, I had it out with my father, basically. And also, there was a significant section in which I made some reasonable conclusions regarding how my mother, who died in 2001 from cancer, died apostate. I'm 98.9% sure that that is indeed the case, based on a number of conversations that were had, which I detailed in the letter. I also said in the letter that I wouldn't be contacting my siblings, who were all still then in the organization. My father, I told him in the letter that I wouldn't be contacting them, but that this was just between him and me, between the father and the firstborn, and I wasn't going to be involving anybody else. All right. He basically took that letter, redacted all the parts that made him look bad, or revealed how our mother actually felt about the truth, right, and her feelings about that towards the end there. He redacted all that material out. So my question for you, Lloyd, is this: they haven't received the full information. They've received my letter, but weaponized against me. Not exactly taking things out of context, because he leaves in some zingers there against the organization and things that, anybody with a little bit of brain power would be able to see, would be like, oh, yeah, no, that is culty. Huh. He leaves that stuff in for some reason and takes hope. At one point, he took out 7.5 pages of this letter. What a time they put us through, eh, Lloyd? Our Jehovah's Witness relatives. Anyway, so my question is, what is my duty of care towards my siblings? My youngest sibling is out. Her and her husband woke up about 1.5 years ago, and it's been smooth sailing ever since for them. They're really doing well, and I'm happy for them. Coming up on 5 minutes here. But my brother and my sister, who have not had the full information that would, if they knew it, would make a difference in how they feel about our father, how they feel about Jehovah's Witnesses, how they feel about the Watchtower organization, and how they feel about being in a cult. I think it would make a real difference. But then I think I also have to balance it against my mental health. So these are my questions, Lloyd. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate your channel. I've been watching for a couple of years now, and it's been inspiring to see the activism continuing. And I wish you the best of luck. And yes, you can use my message. Thank you again. Take care, Lloyd.
Thank you very much, Scott. That was a remarkable message, and you've shared a lot there. And it sounds like, as you say, you've been put through a lot by members of your family, by people who aren't in your family, interfering in your family and trying to sabotage relationships, etc. It's a real hot mess, isn't it? And, unfortunately, this is par for the course when we're talking about the Jehovah's Witness organization. Many viewers will be able to relate to not just the challenges that you've faced internally within your family, but also the outside interference and people inserting themselves where they have no business. So you really do have my sympathies. I'll jump straight to your question of duty of care. I don't think you have a duty of care, to be honest. I don't think that's something you should feel remotely guilty about. If we're talking about siblings of yours who don't have the full story, either about their mother or their mother's doubts that she expressed to you before she died, or about the organization in general, sad though it is, you've just got to let it go. It's one of those situations where when it comes to stress, and you mentioned mental health, when it comes to dealing with problems and challenges and distressing situations, you can only focus on the things that you have control over. With anything that you don't have control over, it's better for you if you can just let it go. Because I know you say, if they knew about my mother's doubts that she expressed to me, if they knew about the organization's various abuses and scandals over the years and flip-flopping of teachings, you name it, if they knew, they would wake up. I've got to say, I wish it were that simple. I wish it were that simple. I think it's not that simple. It's not as simple as just presenting information to somebody and them just, okay. Well, in that case, that's not how this works. There's cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance, as I've mentioned many times, and I know this having interviewed an expert on cognitive dissonance, thumbnail here, if Tibor is gracious, which we know he always is, apart from that one time. That interview was very illuminating because it helped me to understand that we not only all have cognitive dissonance, but we all need it. It helps us to preserve our sense of self. And if we were to just change our minds on something that is a deeply held belief, be it religious or political, you name it, if we were able to do that simply because someone offers us something that's contradicting, a contradicting piece of information or some evidence that blows our previous beliefs wide open, then we wouldn't have a solid basis for our sense of self. We would just be changing our minds constantly. It would compromise our ability to hold on to our identity, in other words. So it's simply not the case that you have any responsibility to impart any information at all to your siblings who are grown adults, and they have their own responsibilities, and frankly, it's their job to figure out what's true and what's not true. And if they really want to get to the bottom of what's happened with you, then surely they have ways of reaching out to you. Surely they would be able to track you down. Unfortunately, their minds are not their own. They are under the control of the organization. And for as long as that's the case, you really need to not feel guilty about their situation, about their plight, because it's out of your hands. So the main question and the main reason I played your message is because you had a very clear question, even though the situation itself is very relatable. Again, the simple question of duty of care, I cannot be clear enough. You need to let go of any sort of guilt or any sort of feeling as though you owe it to your other siblings to help them or to free them or to wake them up. Because not only is that not how it works, and we should be grateful in a way that that's not how it works, they know how to reach you, and it's their responsibility to figure these things out. So I hope you found this message useful, and again, I really do sympathize with your situation. It sounds, however, as though you've got a reasonable handle on things, and isn't it nice that you have at least one sibling who's out as well? So I'm actually quite jealous about that. You have at least that, where you can be together, and because I think it's important that you have some kind of connection with your nuclear family that you grew up with, and shunning can be so painful in decimating those connections. So if you can at least have some kind of relationship with even just one of your siblings, I think that's something to be really grateful for. Anyway, I hope I've done your message justice. Thanks again for sending it. If you would like to leave a message, the thing to do is go to speakpipe.com/Cedars, remembering to indicate clearly if you don't want me to broadcast your message. But that's all we have time for. Thank you so much for watching.